Producer Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes in a new area. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 list on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast.
Everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast, the Combatcast edition, and you know who it is. It's a man called Dave. It's Chevy. Kanye Asada is still MIA currently, but
he's on the run.
Yeah, he's on the run. He's hiding under the ring in New Mexico somewhere. So we're gonna do another 531 segment this week. I got a few lists. We're talking. We might have to redo this one at some point down the road, guys, because there's so many. We're talking best MMA lightweight fights, and there's so many great lightweight fights in MMA that I don't really feel like, we're kind of doing this because we wanted something to talk about this week. And I would have I think 6 lists between all of us, and we probably need more lists. We probably need more time because it's the best. Other than the welterweight, right? Would you say these are the 2 best divisions in MMA?
Ooh, I don't know. I'd say I'd go the other way. Well, currently, right now, I'd probably say bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight are the best. Welterweight also great, but of all time, lightweight probably the best of all time.
Okay, and it's definitely probably the money weight division, right? Because you got your Connors, you had Habib, the Diaz boys were there for a while. I know they're doing welterweight now, but I feel like a lot of big players in the. It was BJ Penn was BJ Penn was doing the lightweight, so
it's also where most people human men weigh somewhere in that. So the skill to be a top 10 or whatever lightweight is a higher skill cap, I feel like.
It's funny, just in saying that, I realized we're going to have some women's MMA lists coming up here. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, we're not going to do women's lightweight. That's not really Kayla,
I couldn't name another one. So
Right. So I'm trying to think, but so that'd be interesting when we get to that, greatest MMA female competitors of all time.
It's tough because they're not, they haven't been around that long.
That's what I'm saying too. Right, yeah, because it's almost man, even just off the top of my head, I know it's just going in the opposite direction, but greatest MMA female fighters of all time. Literally, without giving much thought, it's okay, Rousey, Nunes, Nunes, Rousey, 1 and 2, yep. And then it's
Cyborg.
Cyborg. Thank you. Yeah, you could even argue she's probably
Valentina.
1 or 2. Yeah. Okay.
And maybe Joanna. That's probably my off the top of my head top 5 of all time.
Sure. Yeah. I think we're going to definitely have those three. And then I think Cyborg, Rousey, and Nunes should be like your three.
Right now, they're cemented, yeah. For sure.
Right. And I mean, I know there's a lot of Rousey haters out there, but Strikeforce, UFC, put the women's MMA on the map. And
yeah, where would they be without her? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we can throw some love to Gina Carano there too, who started back in the day. But
always,
yeah, Rousey definitely brought the next level. I was listening to when this came out. Rousey was coming to the aid of somebody on the Olympic swimming team, saying that like you can't understand what they're going through. I don't know who it was, but it was basically
the Simone Biles gymnastics.
Yes.
She pulled out.
Yeah.
Rousey's going to her aid.
Yeah, Rousey's point was, she's in the Olympics and you're on Twitter, and it's like, it's a big difference.
Yeah, you have no idea what's going through her, yeah.
Right. And then I guess some people were saying, well, Rousey, you quit too. And everybody was in these comments and I'm just like, yeah, okay, so she quit after what? After she won the Strikeforce, UFC, bantamweight titles, and then
Olympic bronze medalist,
and went on to WWE, another platform, but headlined her first Mania as a woman. And I think she's accomplished enough where she wants to, stop doing something. It just sounds so crazy to me.
Brendan Schaub would say Cheeto fingers. Those people have Cheeto fingers.
Yes.
Anyway. Let's bring it back to the men's lightweight. We'll have to figure out a list for women's later on.
Yes. I got some new people to add to some list here. Guy hit me up on Facebook. Frank the Crank. All right.
Oh, nice.
He's serious. He's got Alvarez versus Chandler. Bellator 58. I believe that's the first one, and that is when Chandler submitted Alvarez, I believe. Joe Lozon versus Jim Miller, UFC 155. Miller gets the win there. That was a bloodbath. Edgar versus Maynard, UFC 118. That is the first one that Edgar won. And then he's got Eddie Alvarez versus Justin Gaethje, UFC 218. That's still on Alvarez won. Would have needed a head, I believe, unless that's the Poirier one. And actually, he's got Gaethje versus Poirier on UFC Fox 29. So right off the way, I guess what jumps off to me on these lists is Justin Gaethje, even though in losing efforts was on two of these lists. And what an exciting fighter. I think we're going to
see him on a lot of lists. His nickname's the highlight for a reason.
He made one of the fights on my list. It was kind of random, yeah. But, man, are there any of those fights that you haven't seen yet? Did you see Lozon Miller?
I've seen Lozon Miller. The Chandler fight, I don't know if the Bellator one, I'm not sure if Alvarez. I've heard about it, their big rivalry that went from Bellator. Wanted to see Chandler in the UFC earlier to see that rematch, but didn't happen. So
yeah. I saw the second fight that they had where Alvarez actually won a split decision, which was super close. I remember thinking I thought Chandler might have even edged it out, but it was close. And I remember thinking, boy, these guys are good. You know what I mean? You could just tell, they were just better than everybody else that was in Bellator at that time. Bellator has added some names in town over but at that time it was man, Bellator's got two gems here. So let's go on to my next list. We got Pistol Pete, another great name. He's got Cowboy Cerrone versus Nate Diaz, UFC 141. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier 2, UFC 236. This is a great fight. Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez, UFC 166. Poirier versus Hooker from a fight night. It was Poirier Hooker was the main event. And Edgar versus Maynard 2. That was UFC 125, which ended in a split decision draw. Before we got on, you were telling me about Edgar and Maynard, and we'll talk about that more on your list. But for you, how competitive? How good were those fights?
I don't know if we would see those fights in the current UFC. Edgar gets rocked in both fights early on, and stumbles around the ring, could have been stopped at any moment, but they let him continue, and came back and won. I remember both fights. Super good. They're on my list as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't know. Like, Edgar took so much punishment. It's one of those things where I don't think anybody would have blamed the ref for stopping the fight, but then they allowed it to happen, and now he comes back and he ends up pulling a crazy victory, and then the second one makes a great comeback, so it's a draw, and he keeps his title. And it's interesting, too, like, the last list we had, too, looking at those Alvarez fights, too, like the wars that Alvarez has and how it took its toll on his career. And then even Edgar and Maynard. Like, Maynard was not really himself too long after that. I want to say maybe he had one or two fights where he was all right, but then he started getting rocked and knocked out like all the time after that.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think that we're gonna have a lot of difficult decisions on doing this list, because you're bringing up some fights that I'm thinking, oh man, yeah, that was a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is, I guess we can kind of hopefully too with the fans are going to keep mentioning some more fights so we can see. Like, all right, I got Randy Osgood's list here, and right off the top, we got Edgar Maynard 2, UFC 125. So, and here we go again. Nate Diaz, Donald Cerrone, UFC 141 makes it. Going old school here, BJ Penn, Diego Sanchez, UFC 107. Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, UFC 218. And then here we go again. Poirier, Max Holloway, 236. I want to say something, too, about that 236 card. That is also the same card, I want to say, that we had Gastelum versus Stylebender on the same card. So, like, when we start previewing, like, all-time great cards, like, that's UFC 236 is going to be right there. Because I don't know what was the better fight between those two fights, too. I remember when I think my ex-wife was there at the time, too, and she even said to me, she's like, this is the best friggin' card. Like, because we weren't hanging out all the time, but we were still friends. I know she goes there. She's like, I'm so happy I came to this card because she was an MMA fan. It was like, yeah. It was crazy, yeah.
Yeah, that card was amazing. Those two fights, amazing.
I got the man called Cran. He's back this week with another list.
Cran.
He always got some good ones. But, okay. He's got Edgar Henderson, 1, UFC 144. Just an absolute insane fight. Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez, UFC 166, barn burner. Rustam Khabilov versus Vince Pichel.
Of course.
He had that in there because of the KO suplex.
Always a fan.
Abe Trujillo versus Jamie Varner. Man got Lincolned because Abe Lincoln. Yeah, so when he knocked him out, he Lincolned him. And then he's got Dos Anjos versus Anthony Pettis. And it's funny, when I was doing some research on top lightweight fights, people had that Dos Anjos Pettis fight in there. For my money, I didn't really enjoy that fight necessarily that much. I just thought it was a great performance by Dos Anjos. Like, he used his wrestling, he used his striking. It was a good fight, but I don't know if it would make like my all-time great fights list.
Yeah, like you said, with all the other fights we've been hearing, it's tough to put that one up there for me as well.
Yeah.
There's just so many great fights, but in a top 5 list, I don't know if that one makes it for me.
So why don't we let's see, what's your list here?
All right. Well, I cheated a little bit. So with Frankie and Gray Maynard, I put both fights on a list as a tie.
Yeah.
And I have Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje. The leg kicks. Justin Gaethje comes into the UFC. Crazy leg kicks. He's working Eddie Alvarez over, and Eddie just starts going to the body. Just back and forth the entire fight was really good. And I have Justin Gaethje, Michael Johnson.
Yes.
I'm surprised I didn't hear that one on more lists. But they were just swinging in classic, the highlight fashion. he's just walking them down, and they're just full blast in the face. Gilbert Melendez, Diego Sanchez, which I thought I would hear on more lists also.
Mm-hmm.
That one was up there for me. And Justin Gaethje, Justin Poirier, that fight was good too. I don't think I heard that on anyone else's list, but Gaethje hurt Dustin's leg early in the first round, and Dustin, with not being able to plant his legs, really was hitting Gaethje full blast with everything throughout the rest of the fight, and that's when you really saw Dustin being able to dig down, and I thought that started his run to what I assume will be his lightweight title that he's still working on currently. And then I put as an honorable mention, I guess, the Holloway versus Poirier 2, because I love both guys. That fight was back and forth. If Max had a little bit more power, I think that might have been right at the top of the list.
How many, looking at all these wars, like Poirier's been in, Gaethje's been in.
Gaethje's on that's all he does is wars.
Yeah, Alvarez too. Like I feel like those Gaethje Alvarez and Poirier Alvarez stuff too. Actually, I don't think anyone mentioned Poirier Alvarez, but they had great fights too. And it's amazing. Like I feel like lightweight is such an interesting division, right? Because it's that glamour division, but you can be, just look at Conor, right? You can be the greatest thing one day, and then next day,
you can't be in the top 5.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting, like to me, like Poirier, because Poirier's a guy to me, like so far at least, he's been in wars, but he's just gotten better as his career's gone on so far. Like he's learned, he's continued to thrive, and it'll be interesting to see how his career plays out. I want to see that guy win a title so bad. Nothing against DuBronx, who's great, but if Dustin Poirier can just have the title one time before his career, and he gets to have one more big money fight with Conor, which I could give two shits about at this point, but honestly, he's such a good dude. I hope he gets that. I hope he gets the title. I hope he gets one more big money fight, and as far as I'm concerned, he can go out on top. Because he's one of the best. Yeah.
Get him a fight versus Conor. Get him a fight versus Nate. Make all that money.
Yeah, make all the money. Yeah. Then maybe even go for a title fight. He won't win it, but have him go out and have one more big money fight. Go up to welterweight too if he wins all those fights. All right, my list. It was the Ultimate Fighter Redemption. I had it too. I totally agree with you. It should have been on more list. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Johnson. Outstanding fight when Johnson basically had rocked Gaethje. And I remember watching this fight too, and I had heard about all the hype going around Justin Gaethje, and I thought, okay, maybe not. He's swinging, and then he comes back and he finishes him, and I'm like, man, I love this guy. I don't know how well he's going to do, but I can't wait to his next fight. And that was kind of the thing, right? And then I also want to say that I didn't put Gaethje on it because I did see Gaethje versus Poirier on another person's list here too, and I thought to myself, okay, I don't want to put all the Gaethje fights on here because there's so many good ones.
Oh, that's what I did. He was 3 of my 5 or whatever.
Yeah, I did. And looking up this fight, and I kind of put it on there. It was a great fight, but the reason I put this fight on there was because of the. All right, Pettis versus Henderson. WEC 53. I did this basically because to me that Showtime kick is the most epic. It's UFC, it's MMA, right? And it's not pro wrestling, right? So we don't get replays of wrestling maneuvers or something like that. You get knockouts usually, right? But there's ever going to be a more flashy, strike than that Showtime kick off the cage against Benson Henderson, which didn't even finish the fight. They keep on fighting. It goes decision. But
Michel Pereira is trying.
He's trying. He's definitely trying. Yeah. But that's outstanding. So I had to put it on my list. Joe Lozon, Jim Miller, UFC 155 also made my list. Tony Ferguson and Anthony Pettis, 229, because I thought myself, Tony Ferguson needs to be on some of these lists. It's he's such an animal. One fight didn't make that list, but I know you know the one I'm talking about. The guy took the fight on. Tony took the fight on short notice too. He's one of our favorite fighters. He wins some. He's got like the most draws I think I've ever seen in the UFC. God, I'm blanking out on his name right now. They fought. It wasn't recently, but they had a barn burner of a fight. Tony won. He got him in a Darce choke, but Tony got rocked a bunch of times too. God, who did the guy just recently fight too? But yeah, he's had a couple draws and he's had a couple losses. But we always say we love him because he's just super entertaining and he fights crazy. God, now it's gonna bother me. So we're gonna look this up right here.
I was also thinking about the Tony Ferguson and Pettis fight. I almost put that on my list too. It was I wish that Pettis hadn't broke his hand because he was looking good when he had to stop, when they had to call it.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, Pettis was having an awesome performance, and Lando Venata was the guy I was thinking.
Lando, yes.
Yeah, that's just a super fight. If anybody hasn't seen like an under the radar fight, like that was on a fight night. It looks like it was McDonald versus Lineker, but yeah, from let's see here, 2016, hell of a fight. I think Tony gets caught up in that a little bit too, but then comes back with the choke. Outstanding. And final on my list too, I had Benson Henderson and Frankie Edgar, like our man Cran, UFC 144. Kind of a sensitive. It was one of my first big UFC pay-per-views I ever went to go see out. So I was just very excited about that. And it was a crazy fight. I want to say it was in Japan. This is the card where Rampage versus maybe Bader was on there, and he got out wrestled, but he did a crazy slam, and Bader landed on his head and neck at one point too, which was shades of a Rona Rampage. And I was like, man, this and then Roy Nelson, Big Country, got a big knockout on there over Congo as well. So just crazy card. So in limiting this down, I guess. All right, Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard, I think, has to make this top 3. So why don't we just pick one of those fights to go on? What would you like to see? Would you a split draw, or would you rather see the Frankie?
The first one.
That's what I think too. That's what I had. The comeback victory. We'll put that in there. So many Gaethje fights. So I feel like one of his fights should make it. Even though me and you both Michael Johnson, Alvarez.
I'd say Alvarez.
Yeah, okay, I'm down with that. So that one will make that. And then looking at this, kind of a wild card, but I feel like we got a few people saying Poirier and Max too was kind of one of those fights on there too. So I got no problem putting
surprised by that one a little bit. I'm surprised we didn't see more Gilbert Melendez, Diego Sanchez.
I mean, Cran had it. I should have had it. I had it. Yeah, one other person had it. I mean, we could throw that one in there too. That's another fight that was really back and forth. I think what I like about the Holloway fight, though, is if you look at the stats of this fight, like Holloway was actually landing more punches. And that's why it was a little more competitive to me. Like the thing with the Diego and Melendez fight was that it was just Diego's heart, the way he just kept coming forward in the drive, and he caught Melendez that one time too, But yeah, I'm gonna lean we'll go with stakes. All right, they're both good fights, and the stakes were a little higher in Holloway, Poirier,
right, interim title fight.
Yeah. So, but now that we're in that final 3, I say for historical significance, at anything, I feel like, again, Edgar, that great comeback that I wouldn't be allowed today. I'm not saying we'll give, but let's move them on. All right, and let's talk about.
Let's say we cut the Max one only because Max's first fight at lightweight, so that kind of diminishes it a little bit.
Yeah, and then again, you got Gaethje, Alvarez here, 2 studs. 2 warriors. Alvarez has been a UFC, Bellator champion, Dream. And Gaethje, a former World Series of Fighting champion, and he's been so close. He's been the UFC interim champion. But I don't know, man. I'm really partial to that Edgar comeback. To me, it's almost like one of the great comebacks in MMA history. I think it is, right? I mean,
it's either that one or the one against Pat Barry.
Yes, yeah, another one too. So I'm saying we go old school this week, and we go Edgar Maynard 1. I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right, so that'll wrap up that, and we will just talk a little bit about this fight night card. And I say a little bit, I mean a very little bit, because me and Chevy were not very intrigued by this particular show, but we do love Uriah Hall. He's one of our favorite fighters. He's on a 4-fight win streak, although that last fight was awkward as hell. Yes, both are. Yep, I had that right now too. What jumps off my page here looking at these fights is like when you look at Strickland, I think his wins are he's got 10 KOs, 4 subs, and 9 decisions. So to me, he doesn't scream finisher. He's kind of seems like this well-rounded fighter. Whereas Hall, of his 17 wins, 13 are by knockout, and he's got 1 submission. So it's like Hall to me, it seems like he's always going to a detriment sometimes, right? But he's so explosive that when you look at his wins, you would not have figured he would have beat Gegard Mousasi at that one point in his career, but he did because he just caught him. He caught him, and he's capable of doing that. I'm going to go with Hall here. I think Hall will get it done, but that might be because I want him to as well. And he's another guy like Poirier. He's just been trucking along for a while, and I'd like to see him at least get a title shot at some point in his career. You know what I mean? He's got some notable besides that game. He's also beaten Thiago Santos at one point in his career. Anderson Silva now. He's an exciting fighter. He's been in trouble in some of these fights. I think the Krzysztof Jotko fight was a fight I remember where he was getting the crap beat out of him, and he came back to win. Who I believe also that was Strickland's last fight that he beat him as well. So I don't know. I'm going to go Hall. I'm going to say he gets it done TKO round 3. Your thoughts?
So I also love Uriah Hall because he started fighting because of his love of the video game Tekken, which I also love. So
Usada would be here. He'd be all over that, by the way. But go ahead.
Tekken, yeah. So as far as their recent records, Uriah beat Weidman from checking a leg kick in the first strike thrown in the fight. So I kind of throw that one out.
Yeah.
He beat an old Anderson Silva. And he beat Jocko. But it's kind of on the same page with Strickland. He's kind of beat not a lot of higher level competition as well.
Right.
Stylistically, I want to say that this fight is good for Uriah. So his biggest problem, as he's admitted to, is his mental game. So if he's on, I think that Strickland will just march forward and walk into something explosive, like you were saying. That's what I'm hoping for. I like both guys, but I'd love to see Uriah get a couple wins and fight against Adesanya because stylistically that's a good matchup. That being said, if Uriah is not on his mental game, Strickland can break him mentally very easily. He'll walk through shots and he'll push forward, and he has very good range distance management. He's good at hitting people at the end of his punches. So Uriah needs to have some head movement and counter. Hopefully gets it done.
Yeah.
That's what our group is hoping for, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. We're homers for Uriah Hall all day. Great guy. I always find him entertaining, brutally honest in his interviews. I think, I don't know. It's definitely one of those crossroads fights, right? If he doesn't win, then he might not find himself potentially in that tough. But I do think a good win here, he could be 1-2 fights away from fighting for the belt. Just because I think if you look at middleweight, where Hassan has kind of been going through everybody, that's where a guy like Hall could sneak in, because he would be a great stylistic fight. He just needs that 1 or 2 marquee victories. And man, I mean, it would be fun style fight to watch. And I think even like the back and forth, like the shit talk potentially, because Hall is a respectful guy, but Asanya loves to shit talk a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like there'd be a raw, almost natural animosity rivalry between the two.
I think if Hall, if he wins in spectacular fashion, like you were saying, there's not a lot of obvious choices for Adesanya to get a fight. So he probably fights Whitaker, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's whoever proves himself to be worthy or whoever can sell a fight. So if Uriah gets a highlight knockout, he could be next in line after Whitaker again. So
yeah, and he even puts himself in that position to be a short notice guy. You never know if one of these guys fall out, he starts to look a little more entertaining. Like, okay, let's slip Hall in there too, which would probably be a guy like him's best shot, because it is the mental game. So not maybe having to go through all the bullshit and just be in there, prepared fighting. Yeah, that'd be something. Anyway, guys, that'll be it for this week's Combatcast. Get back at us. Tell us what you think, as always. We appreciate it. See ya.